Basically, every character that we designed for the show, we want to make him as unique as possible. With villains, we have a little bit more leeway. We can kind of go a number of different directions with the villains.
What kind of man are you?
A practical one.
Felix Faust, in the comics, he was always a little bit more of a super villain. You know, he had a little bit, I mean, he always had the robe and the cowl and the headband. He looked a little bit more of an old-fashioned, you know, kind of Silver Age, old-school super villain. We wanted to eliminate almost all of that. We knew we were going to have the Hades character in the show who was going to supply the muscle, so we wanted, you know, Faust to be much more of a kind of a Boris Karloff kind of sorcerer. So we eliminated all of the quote-unquote supervillain kind of aspects of him and really focused on going for the kind of, you know, ancient sorcerer kind of look. So we put him in, you know, in the long robe and made him really, really skinny. And I didn't literally make him look like Boris Karloff, but I kind of had Boris Karloff in my head as I was designing his face, you know, with the heavy eyebrows and the really gaunt cheeks. And I think it really worked well for the character. In the comics, he's kind of a bright fuchsia purple, his robes. And we always try to keep the characters as much like their comic book counterparts as possible, at least, you know, some kind of, you know, starting point so that it's not just, you know, a brand new character with the same name. His colors are still violet and gold, but they're definitely more towards the bluish end of the purple spectrum rather than the pinkish elements. The Mongol character, again, appeared in the comics originally. And he was always kind of a second-string villain, I thought. From the very moment they started using him in the DC Comics, he was a second-rate Darkseid, I thought. He's a big, burly guy, and in fact, in the comics, he's probably twice as wide as he is in the cartoon. I mean, he's really, really thick. We had to reduce his bulk a little bit just so that he could fit on the screen. And also, just aesthetically, I think it looks a little bit better to animate a character who's not quite so blocky. And so we slimmed him down a bit. I was never very happy with the design of the character in the comics. His costume is very, very basic. It's very super villainy. It's, you know, it's boots and shorts and a tunic, and there's not really anything terribly interesting about his costume in the comics. We had to find a way to kind of jazz him up, to give him a little bit more production value, to make him look a little bit cooler than he looked in the comics. His basic color scheme in the comics is purple and yellow and really pale blue. So looking at the comics, I thought, well, okay, if instead of making it pale blue, what if all those things that are pale blue in the comics, what if those were metallic parts of his costume? So we tricked him out a little bit with little silvery things, you know, here and there on his costume, and that helped a lot. We put Mongol in long pants, that helped automatically. You can take him a little bit more seriously if the villain is not walking around in Bermuda shorts. It's interesting, because I think he's still very true to the way the character feels in the comics, but the details are different. When we talked about using him in the Justice League show, again, he was not one of our favorite bad guys, but we thought that actually might make him an interesting villain, is the fact that he's not, you know, he's not Darkseid. You know, we already have Darkseid, so why do we need another one? We don't need a clone of him. So we decided to make him more of a Darkseid wannabe. We wanted to make him somebody who wants to be the baddest guy in the universe, but is never going to get there.